welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 12 o'clock on a Sunday, which means it's time for a Q&A. This is where I take all your questions that you've asked during the course of the week and I answer them to the best of my ability. Now, if you have any questions that you want me to ask, please leave them in the comments to this video. There's a lot of comments on this channel. I can't find the questions if they're dotted around all over the place. Leave them in the comments to this video and I'll answer them next week. If I miss them, I'm sorry. Sometimes I do miss the odd question or two. Ask it again and I promise I will answer it. And also thank you to everyone that had nice things to say when I said last week that I have got back in the Magic Circle. It's amazing. Really, really cool. Really enjoying myself. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to get straight on with the questions. So without further ado, let's have a look at the first question. Okay, a lot of people have actually asked me this particular question or variations on this question, which is, now you're in the Magic Circle, will you be diluting the content of this channel? And the short answer to this is no. The long answer is hell no. I came back into the Magic Circle, which is wonderful. I've said that before. I'm glad I'm back in. But the reason I went back into the circle is because I really feel passionately about wanting to help magicians. I've talked about this on the channel before. I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of knowledge that I've accumulated over like 30 years of performing, and I want to try and pass that on. Hence the reason for me doing this YouTube channel. And I have a feeling that I can do that even more effectively being part of the Magic Circle. I absolutely know that the Magic, and no one's told me this, but I just know. I know that the Magic Circle are probably, or the higher ups in the Magic Circle, are probably nervous. The fact that I do a rant every Friday, they're probably thinking, well, when is Craig going to do a rant about the Magic Circle? And the answer is, I don't plan on doing a rant on the Magic Circle. I don't plan on doing a rant on anybody. The whole purpose of the Friday night rants is I see something that annoys me, and I talk about it. And I think that's really important. I think that as a community, sometimes magicians try to cover stuff up, or not cover it up, but we kind of bury our head in the sands and pretend it doesn't exist. And I think that the best way to deal with issues and to deal with problems is to talk about them. And I'm not going to be censored just because I'm in the Magic Circle. If I had a subject that I wanted to speak about, and I spoke about it, and the circle told me not to speak about it, I would still speak about it, because as much as I respect the Magic Circle and as much as I respect the council members that run the Magic Circle, I don't really know much about the internal politics, to be honest. I've only been back in like a week or two. I don't know who runs what or what goes on in there, to be honest. But as much as I respect the whole organisation, they can't tell me what to do. This is not their YouTube channel. This isn't Craig Petty's and the Magic Circle's Magic TV. This is Craig Petty's Magic TV, and I will not have the Magic Circle or anybody else telling me what the content of this channel should be. So please don't worry. It is not going to get diluted down just because I'm in the Magic Circle. And if something happened and I felt like I wanted to do a rant about a particular subject that maybe involved somebody in the Magic Circle, the fact that they're in the Magic Circle wouldn't stop me from doing that rant. That's all. So for all the people that subscribe to this channel, you are 100% not going to get a watered down Craig Petty. You are not going to get somebody who doesn't call stuff out like he sees it. It's going to be straight down the middle, just like it always has. So to anybody who asked that question, there's your answer. Hell no. So the next question is by John 2, and John says, since performing virtual shows, has the concept made you restructure any of your routines, or do you think you'll continue to do it forever? That's a very interesting question. Did virtual shows impact what I've been doing now, doing live gigs? Very interesting question. Well, first of all, I don't think virtual shows are going anywhere. I think that's very important to consider. I think the virtual shows are going to continue to be around. Like, I'm filming this at 5 o'clock. It's the end of the work day. And I know that 30% of the gigs that we've booked in today have been virtuals. I mean, we booked a ton of live shows in, but a lot of them have actually been virtual gigs. So virtuals are still coming in across the board. Kids gigs, corporates, everything. People are still wanting virtual entertainment. But I think it's not going to be the only game in town anymore. And what I mean by that is during 2020 and the early part of 2021, virtual shows were the only game in town. If you wanted to be a magician, if you wanted to perform, you had to be a virtual entertainer. You had to do it online because you couldn't go out the house, right? Well, that's not the case now. And so what I think is going to happen is I think that it's just going to be another option on a magician's website. So all of the guys that do virtual shows or online shows, they're going to have that as an option on their website. You know, when you go on someone's website and it says, hey, I'm a corporate magician, click here for my corporate packages, click here for my wedding packages, click here for my private party packages. It's going to be, hey, click here for my virtual options. And you're going to be able to book people to do a virtual show. And I think that corporates are still going to book virtual entertainment. People are still going to book virtual kids' parties. I think it's going to be an option, and I think it's going to be another string to the bow. I, for one, love doing virtual shows. I don't have to even leave the house. So I think it's going to be here forever. But in terms of the question, have I restructured any of my routines because of it? It's a very interesting question. And probably I think the answer is yes, a little bit in a couple of ways. Like, for example, this weekend I had a kids show. You know, I got sunburned, but I had a kids show. I actually had a really weird weekend. I had like 2 close-up jobs, a kids show and a parlor show. And in the kids' show, it was all outside, and I actually closed the show on cups and balls. I did the cups and balls routine. I actually did Tommy Wonder's cups and balls routine, if you're interested. Now, I would never do cups and balls in a kids' show before. It's never something that's kind of struck me as something that I could do. But I was closing my virtual kids show with the cups and balls, and I was like, well, if it works virtually, why wouldn't it work live? So I did it, and it was absolutely amazing, absolutely brilliant, loved it. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I did, and I probably wouldn't have done that without the experience of doing virtual shows. So yes, in that respect. But I think the other way that I've actually restructured my act, and not so much close up, but more working on stage in a parlor or a cabaret environment, is when I'm taking social distancing into consideration and I have to adapt the show. Like, some venues won't let you bring volunteers up on stage, especially if you work in holiday parks or somewhere like that. So a lot of the routines you do have to be adapted around, so that you have to kind of think of how to do it without actually being able to have a volunteer on stage with you. I've restructured a lot of my acts in order to not have volunteers in a situation where I'm being told that people can't, in situations where I've been told by venues I can't have a volunteer up on stage. I've restructured everything. And I used what I did in the virtual shows, because in the virtual shows it was designed to be done not in person, because obviously they're at the end of a camera, they're at the other side of a screen. So a lot of the lines and the way that I restructured the tricks in order to make them work virtually, I was incorporating that into my stage show as well. So yeah, I suppose I have adapted what I do based around COVID, absolutely, 100%. But but generally as a rule, everything stays the same. I don't think that there's a trick that I've put into my virtual show that was designed specifically for virtuals and I've pushed it over into the online show. The live show. I don't think I've done that. But I think I have taken things that I've learned from doing things virtually, especially dealing with people without actually having them standing next to me, and I've incorporated that into my live shows. But it's a really interesting question. So I suppose the answer is yes. But what about you? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so the next question is from Dan Buck, Harlan Fleshman, White, Sperry, Garcia. I absolutely love that name. Do you worry about appearing skillful, or do you try to appear skillful on purpose so people know they're getting their money's worth? I'm not a professional, so I try to be a bit like Leonard Green and act all sloppy with props to catch the spectators off guard. What's your opinion? It's a really interesting question. And I think the answer is I'm somewhere in the middle. And what I mean by that is I'm not the sort of guy that goes in and does all the fancy sort of card manipulation type stuff. That's not me. In fact, you know, when I first got into commercial card magic, I realized I wanted to do some flourishes, but I wanted to do the bare minimum to show that I had skill, but without taking it too far. So I think I do a butterfly cut, I do a few fancy cuts, I do a one-handed shuffle, springing the cards, a few cascade, flourish, a few other bits and pieces. But generally, as a rule, flourishes are not. I wouldn't read a book on flourishes and add another 5 or 6 flourishes into my act. That's not something that I would do, if that kind of makes sense. But I do have certain flourishes that I do. I think it's really important to show skill, you say you talked about how you act all sloppy with the props. I think it's really important to try and act skillful, at least for me, this is only my opinion, as a magician. I think it's really important to show skill, not necessarily to show that people are getting their money's worth, but for that snapshot moment. Now, you're probably wondering, what do I mean by snapshot moment? Chris Dugdale talks about this. If you watch the interview I did with Chris Dugdale yesterday, he actually talks about this. He talks about how take a snapshot of you performing close up in this situation. So take a snapshot of you performing close up, because that can happen, right? At any gig, you could have a picture taken of you, or you could have a video taken of you at any moment without even any knowledge of that happening. And it might not even show the routine in full. It might just show first few seconds, you know, and then people might start videoing something else. So if somebody sees that snapshot moment, what do you want them to feel? You want them ultimately to go, oh, that's a good magician, I want to book them. So, and the example that Chris Dugdale uses is a balloon dog. If you're a corporate performer, you know, and you're in a restaurant doing a family show, would you want to have a video taken of you doing a balloon dog? In my opinion, when you consider that snapshot moment, I don't want people to have a picture of me where it's looking like I'm not skillful with the deck of cards. Because at the end of the day, they've booked a magician. And a pack of cards is the tool of my trade. Coins are the tool of my trade, which is why I spent a long time learning a 4-coin roll down and a down star. It's why I learned how to do a steeplechase flourish. Because I think that when you are booked as a magician, people know, or at least most people know, that magic's not real. So you know, they expect that you are going to be skillful with the pack of cards. You know, if you're turning around to people and you say, I've been doing this for 20 years, or whatever it may be, because you always get that question, how long have you been doing magic? I've been doing it for 20 years. If you're showing that you're really rubbish with the deck of cards, it's kind of like, how is that even possible? Because if you were doing something for 20 years over and over again, you'd probably get better at it, right? It doesn't matter what it is. If you do the same thing for 20 years, even if you were terrible at it to start, you do it over and over again, you're going to get better at it. That's just logical. So if you're telling people that you're an experienced professional magician, then it only makes sense that you would be good with a deck of cards. Now, I want to put across that I'm not ridiculous. I don't want to be like a dynamo style thing, kicking things up with my legs and catching it in my teeth or anything like that. But I want to be able to, you know, I want to be able to do something like a one-handed flourish and people go, wow, wouldn't I play cards with you? Because that's just showing that I've got skill. You know, that's my opinion anyway. So for me, the reason why I want to show skill and not too much skill isn't so that people are getting, even though it's not about people getting their money's worth, it's more about, it would kind of be logical that I'd be good with a deck of cards, right? That's the tools of my trade. And yet it gets people's attention when you walk up to people and say, hey, I'd like to show you a trick with a deck of cards. Do me a favor, can you give these cards a shuffle? I'll give them a shuffle first. You give them a one-handed shuffle, immediately people know that you are the real deal when it comes to a pack of cards. You're not Uncle Bob from down the pub that does, you know, really naff tricks. You're a guy that can really go, you're showing them that you're good at what you do. Now, in terms of you not being a professional, well, that's totally up to you. I mean, if you want to put that across and that's your character, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine, 100%. I'd be interested to know if Leonard Green, you talked about your Leonard Green and his sloppy style. I'd be interested to know whether Leonard Green actually used that style in a real gigging environment to laymen. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a style that's become iconic with him as magicians. I'd be interested to know if he uses that style amongst laymen as well, because he's known as one of the world's best card magicians. So why would you be really sloppy? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I suppose it comes down to knowing your character. For me, and again, it's only my opinion, it would be illogical for me. In my head, it's illogical that I would not be very good with a deck of cards if I've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. But again, that's just my opinion. So the next question is by Razza Magic. I'm so glad that Razza found this YouTube channel so that I can share the love with Dave Bonsall at Prop Dog. The fancy 3 stash went, Craig, urgent question. Will you take a breather in the middle of answering questions from Razza to say, you're welcome, Dave Bonsall. I got it from here. Anybody who watches Prop Dog Live on a Friday will know that Razza asks a lot of questions to Dave. And Dave very patiently asks them all. Now I know what it's like to be Dave. But hey, Razza, I've said before, the Q&A lives and dies by people asking questions. And you ask some good questions. This particular question is a bit batshit mental, to be honest. But there you go. I've said right from the very beginning, I ask all questions. So let's give this one a shot. Right. This could feel sensitive, but I mean well. Why do you feel the Magic Circle brought you back in if possible? E.g., do you feel that they would have had you back in if you weren't classed as a big name industry veteran? Sorry, I don't know what is or isn't true, but I've been informally told that the Magic Circle can feel like it's full of internal politics. E.g., I've heard of people refusing to return to club nights because of sensitive bullying-related experience. I don't know what is or isn't true, but I heard someone say that they felt that even Dynamo might or might not have only been let in after becoming TV famous. Sorry, I don't mean bad. Getting kickstarted in the Magic community, it's felt incredibly hard, and I don't want to jinx it or anything, but I feel like you've got a lot of credibility as someone who knows their stuff. So we've got two questions here. Why did they let me back in? And what do I feel about the internal politics? So let's answer the first question first. Why did they bring me back in? E.g., do I feel they would have let you back in if I wasn't classed as a big name industry veteran? No. Here's the thing, right? Forget for a second about why they let me back in. If they let me back in because I'm a big name industry veteran, and by the way, I don't think I am a big name industry veteran, to be perfectly honest. But even if I am, I haven't changed from 4 or 5 years ago when I got asked not to renew my subs or kicked out or however you want to look at it. Like 5 or 6 years ago, however long it was, they kicked me out. They asked me not to renew, whatever it may be. I was probably a bigger name back then in the Magic community. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. I was a fairly big name back then because I was on the Wizard Product Review. I was doing it with David Penn every single week. I'd release like probably 15 or 20 tricks. I had new products coming out all of the time. I was going to all of the conventions. People who knew who I was. Like I've talked on this channel about going to Magic Live and walking around Magic Live and everyone going, "Oh, Craig, Dave, can I get your signature?" It was like being a rock star. That was probably the height of my industry big naminess. I don't even think that's a word, but whatever. Now that's not the case. I left the Magic community for years. There's probably a lot of people in Magic who don't know who I am, and I know people are going to be going, "Well, you started Magic TV a year ago and you've got 6,000 subscribers." Well, yeah, but that's only 6,000 subscribers. Chris Ramby's got a few million. You know what I mean? Yeah, I've got a few thousand subscribers. That's great, and I'm building the channel, and I'm putting a lot of videos out. But there's still a lot of people who don't know who I am, and I don't think they give two hoots about the fact that I do a YouTube channel. I don't think the fact that I do a YouTube channel it has got anything to do with them letting me in or not. The interview that I did with Robert Pound, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. You know, at no point in the application process for the Magic Circle does it go, can I ask how big a name you are in the Magic community? How big a name you are in the Magic industry? I'd like to know that, please. That's not a question that comes up, right? So I don't think it's got anything to do with me being a big name industry veteran. Why did they bring me back in? I think there's a few reasons why they brought me back in. One, I wrote a letter to them saying I'd like to get back into the Magic Circle, please. And remember my reasonings for going back into the Magic Circle. My main reason, outside of wanting to try and help people and blah, 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 my main reason is so that I'm in the Magic Circle for when Rylan turns 10. Because when he's 10 years old, he wants to join the Young Magic Circle. And I'm sure they would have let him in if I wasn't back in as a member. But I don't want people to turn around to him and go, "Oh, you're Craig Petty's son, yeah, he got kicked out the Magic Circle and they won't let him back in," right? That was my reason for getting back in. So I think the main reason is I wrote to them, they debated it, they wrote back to me and they said no. I then appealed it and I sent another letter off saying, "Actually, I think you're wrong. This is why I'm wrong. This is why you're wrong." And I sent another letter and I hounded them. You know, you talk about Dynamo, and I have no idea about that. And my advice to you, Razza, is not to listen to hearsay, because unless you spoke to the person, unless you spoke to Dynamo, and Dynamo's told you that, I wouldn't listen to hearsay, because there's a lot of bullshit that goes on, and there's a lot of crap that gets said, and not all of it's true. But take Dynamo as an example. Why did he do so well? Because he hustled. He didn't take no for an answer. He gate-crashed parties, celebrity parties, and he just made a name for himself that way. All I did is I just kept hounding the Magic Circle. And at the same time, they knew, I mean, it wasn't without being big-headed, because I'm not being big-headed. They know that I've got the performing ability. It's not about that. They know that because I went into the Magic Circle 12 years ago now at AIMC level. So they know that I'm not degraded in my ability level over the last 12 years. So it's not a performance thing. It's Craig's very outspoken, wrote a load of blogs about the Magic Circle, got pissed off. We probably, I don't know, because I haven't spoken to the council about it, but it's probably something along the lines of, can we really trust this guy? And in many ways, they're probably right to think that, to be perfectly honest. But what I've done over the last 6 months is although I've stayed true to myself, and I've continued to call stuff out as I see it, I think I've handled the rejection really well. Now, when the Magic Circle, when I talk about everything on this channel. So when I said I'm going to ask about rejoining the Magic Circle, I brought it up on this channel. When they wrote back to me saying I'm not going to be a member and they won't let me back in and they wish me well with my future endeavours, I brought it up on this channel. Now, I could have said, who the hell do they think they are? But I didn't. I was like, well, that's their opinion. I can kind of understand where they're coming from. They probably respected that. I don't know again. I haven't spoken to anybody. Then, when they rejected me again, I brought it up on the channel again. And I said, hey, that's their opinion. But I'm not going to stop trying. And in the meantime, I've been interviewing lots of people that are members of the Magic Circle. People like Michael J. Fitch. People like David Penn. People like Noel Coulter, who's in the examinations committee. Lots of people, and every single time I've interviewed a Magic Circle member, I've spoken very highly of the Magic Circle. And I've let them on my channel talk about the Magic Circle and how wonderful it is. And then I did an interview with Bob Pound talking about how to get into the Magic Circle. So they're probably looking at it and they're thinking, well, Craig's a bit of an asshole. He's screwed us over before. He's slagged us off. He's wrote blogs about us. And he's done this and this and this and this and this. And that's on one hand. But on the other hand, all of that stuff that he's done, he doesn't seem to be doing anymore. And, and he's also done this and this and this. And the fact that I keep hounding them, that's probably why. But I don't know. You're going to have to ask the Magic Circle. But that's probably why they let me back in. In terms of the politics, look, I don't know what the rules are with the Magic Circle. I've not been in for a long time. I have a strong feeling that you're not meant to talk about what goes on in the Magic Circle outside of the Magic Circle. It's kind of like, it's like Las Vegas. What happens in the circle stays in the circle, right? But what I will tell you is I was a little bit surprised when I was allowed into the Facebook group. Because when I was allowed into the Facebook group, Magic Circle have their own little Facebook group where members talk, and I was allowed back in, and I kind of put a post in there saying, hey, I'm back, I'm excited. But I left it 3 or 4 days before I put a post in because I wanted to get a lay of the land. And I don't think a lot of people knew that I was actually back in. So I wanted to kind of have a look around. I was actually surprised at the amount of bickering that was going on. It's like any Facebook group. There was some bickering, there was some moaning. I think part of it was because there's been a lot of turmoil recently with various different things that have been going on that I don't really know much about because I've only just been let back into the circle. But a lot of people were moaning and a lot of people were bitching, I think is the word I can say. And there was not that much conversation about Magic. And I was wanting to get into a conversation about, right, who's got the best double lift? And instead it was more of a case of, well, let's moan about this, now let's moan about that, let's moan about that. But that's not the Magic Circle, that's human nature. I think they just changed the subs or something, and it was renewal time, and there was a lot of questions going on, and I think they changed the way that they'd done it from before. So a lot of people just don't like change, Razza. That's the thing. People don't like change, and I think there was a lot of turmoil about that. But to everyone that I've spoken to and I've interacted with on the Magic Circle Facebook page, they have been super nice and super friendly. I have had so many people contact me, congratulating me on getting back into the Magic Circle. From the Magic Circle, it's been great. You know, I understand there's going to be politics anywhere. That's the thing. There's going to be politics anywhere. That's just the way it is. You know, people always, like I said, it's human nature. But I still think that it's the best Magic club I've ever seen. I've talked openly about the first time I was in the Magic Circle. It felt very cliquey. And I've openly said that on this channel. And I've brought this up with Bob Pound. I actually said to him, it felt very cliquey, and he agreed with me. It doesn't feel as cliquey anymore. Maybe it's because of the COVID thing and the unlocked events and online and all the work that Bob and his team are doing. I don't know. But it doesn't feel cliquey anymore. And that was my big issue with the Magic Circle back in the day. It does not feel cliquey. And I've been to Magic clubs where people don't even want to talk about Magic. I've talked about this on a rant. People don't even want to talk about Magic. It's like a Magic club that don't even want to talk about Magic. There's people on the council of these Magic clubs that they don't even do Magic, and it baffles me. It really does. That's not the case with the Circle. So, I don't think it's going anywhere, and I'm glad that I'm back in, and I hope that answers your question. So the next question is from Tyler Lunsford, who again I'm going to say has one of the best YouTube channels on YouTube, and I really highly encourage everyone to go and watch it. He is a dude. Hey Craig, hey Tyler. I heard you mention things about pro wrestling before on the channel. Do you watch any pro wrestling, or are you into that kind of thing? AEW, WWE, NXT, UK, etc. Yeah, man, I've been into wrestling for a very, very long time. I think the first pay-per-view I ever saw was WrestleMania 2. So we're going way back, but I have been obsessed with wrestling for a very long time. I stay up on a Monday night and I watch Raw. I tend not to stay up for NXT or SmackDown, but I'll watch them later. Ryland's into wrestling as well, but he doesn't have time to watch everything. He just watches the pay-per-views, and I catch him up with stuff that happens in between. But yeah, I'm a big wrestling fan. And here's the thing. For anybody that watches wrestling, I think there is a massive parallel between wrestling and magic in so many different ways. I think that magicians can learn so much about performing magic if they watch wrestling. I really do. First of all, it's very interesting that I think back in the day, like we're talking sort of back in Houdini's era and maybe even up to sort of World War I and World War II, magic was considered almost real. Not really, but it is. But these days, I think a lot of people realise that magicians aren't really magicians and they're just pulling tricks. But back in the day, when you were invited into the kings and queens parlours, it felt like it was real. Well, that's the same with wrestling. When wrestling was first around, when I first started watching it, that term kayfabe, everybody thought it was real. Everybody thought it was real. Now, these days, I think everybody's in on the joke. Everybody's in on the fact that it's scripted. I hate people that say, it's fake, because wrestling's not fake. You ask a wrestler if that move that they just took hurt, and they'll tell you, yes. Did that bump hurt that they just took? They'll tell you, yes. It is not fake. They are really getting hurt. However, it is predetermined. It is scripted. And I think they've been very open about that now. And I think people still know, and it's still as popular now. Okay, arguably the ratings are down, but whatever. It's still a very popular thing for people to watch, right? So, and it's the same with magic. There's so many parallels. With wrestling, you think that the most important thing is characterization, and you watch all these different characters and they really believe in their character. And some people, they have a character of somebody who's kind of just a real everyday guy. Some characters are over the top, and it's the same in magic. You have to, the way to become a really good performer is to think about your character and your characterization, and how you actually, what you do is based around that character. And then obviously in wrestling, they're hiding things that make it more realistic. I mean, I should do a video on this at some point, but there are so many parallels, and you just watch a wrestler cut a promo. And what, for anybody who doesn't watch wrestling, that means when they deliver, not when they're wrestling, but when they're talking normally about another wrestler or something. It's called cutting a promo. And you look at how they deliver that. They look at how they deliver it. A really good promo artist, somebody like The Rock, for example, is a perfect example. He will literally have everybody in that arena on the edge of their seat, hanging off his every word. And he's not hiding behind magic tricks. He's walking out, and he's able to get people to listen to every word he says. And it's how he delivers it. It's how he delivers it. He can get people laughing 1 second, crying the next. And yeah, I mean, magicians should watch wrestling, because it really does. There are so many parallels. So yeah, Tyler, that's a very long way of saying I'm going to do a video. If you want to see a video, I'm considering doing a video now. What magicians can learn from watching professional wrestling. If you guys would like to see that, let me know and I might put that together. But yeah, I've been a professional wrestling fan my whole life. I'm WWE through and through. But I love all organizations. WCW, I love some of the stuff that AEW is doing. I think Jericho's doing a great job. NXT is absolutely smashing it. And then there's Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor. I love Ring of Honor as well. And TNA, although they've gone downhill. Anyway, this is a Magic channel, a YouTube channel. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of wrestling. Okay, so Mr. Harmon has got another question. Hey, Mr. Harmon, and his question is, just bought The Boy Who Cried Magic, and it's a really good book. Yes, it is. Tons of amazing tricks in it, but what's your favourite trick out of the book? I know it's tough. It is tough. But I would say that my favourite trick is one that I did on the review show, and then I did a Magic Live on it as well, which is the Shuffle Cut Deal, I think it's called. It's so clean, it's almost self-working. You have a deck of cards, you show it, you have somebody deal down, so you have people cut a small packet of cards, then somebody else deals and they stop whenever they want to, and then somebody else shuffles and you put the cards there. And so it's Shuffle Cut Deal, and then when you turn over the card that they dealt to, it says you dealt to this card. When you look at the card they cut to, you cut to this card, and then this one says, you know, shuffle here. It's an amazing trick, it really is. I love that routine. It's completely self-working, but it's genius in its thinking. But let me know, Mr. Harmon, what's your favourite trick in Andy's book? I'd love to know. Okay, so the next question is from Jake470. Hey, Jake, how you doing, man? And Jake says, this is a very interesting question. Would love to find out what happened between you and Russell Leeds. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, right. So you want to know what's happened between me and Russell Leeds. For those people that don't know what I'm talking about, when I left the Magic community, I talked openly in this channel about leaving the Magic community, and I talked about building my business. I did it with a guy called Russell Leeds. Now, if you don't know Russell Leeds, incredible magician, absolutely incredible magician. One of the best rubber band manipulators you will ever see. In fact, if you go and look at Ryan Fleish's rubber bands, you know, Joan Ryan Fleisch has the legacy bands, and each band is named after a different band magician. So you've got Dan Harlan, you've got Hanson Chen, there's a whole bunch of different bands named after different magicians. Russell has his own band, the yellow band, the most common band, is named after Russell Leeds. And he was my business partner in both Slightly Unusual and Non-Stop Kids Entertainment. And when I talk about my companies, I built them up with him. And then a couple of years ago, we parted ways. And it was a big deal in the Magic community at the time. Because me and Russell were very well known, you know, both we gave a lot of work to a lot of magicians, and he was well known for releasing magic in the Magic community. He released like 5 or 6 tricks. We released some stuff together. I think one of his most popular tricks is something called Tube, which is a mind reading trick, where somebody takes a tube map and goes on an imaginary journey and you read their mind and tell them what tube stations they're thinking of. Incredible trick, actually, really good trick. And then all of a sudden, no Russell, and I'm running Non-Stop Kids and Slightly Unusual on my own, and he's not to be seen. And if anybody Googles him and looks at him, he's now a property investor. He runs a property training company. So what happened is a very interesting story. And you know what? I think the best way to do it would be for me to see if I could interview Russell. Would anybody be interested in me doing an interview with Russell Leeds on this channel? And we could talk about his time in magic as a magician, because honestly, he was an incredible magician. And then we could obviously talk about the elephant in the room and talk about why me and Russell went our separate ways. I mean, that way you're getting the story from both sides as opposed to just me, because I could turn around and say what happened from my point of view. But if I got Russell on the interview and he talked about it from his point of view as well, that would probably be a more beneficial video for you to get a full representation of actually what happened. Because the bottom line is, I now run the companies on my own, well, with Sarah, my wife, and Russell has gone off, and as I say, he's a very successful property investor, trainee person, don't really know, have no interest in property. other than the house I live in. But if you guys have any interest in seeing that, I don't want to babble on about it on a Q&A, but if anybody's got an interest in it and you'd like me to arrange an interview with Russell, I think I could probably do that. In fact, I know I could. Just let me know in the comments down below and I'll make it happen. If you guys want to see an interview with Russell and we'll talk openly about what happened, just let me know and I will make it happen. Okay, so the last question today is by the Fonz360. How you doing, man? And the question is, would you ever plan on doing lectures again in the future? Good question. I used to do a lot of lecturing back in the day, and I think that after I left the magic community, I think I did 3, maybe 4, and that's it. I haven't done any since then. I am planning on doing a new lecture. I am planning on putting together a new lecture for the later part of 2021, 2022, something like that. But only if I can do it in my way. And what I mean by that is I don't want it to be a deal-a-dem. I want it to be a lecture where people can come and get really great content out of the lecture. Because I hate it when I go to a lecture and I sit there and I watch it and it may be entertaining, but at the end, if I want to get anything or if I want to get anything out of it, I have to spend a fortune, right? I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be inclusive so that anybody can come along and they can pick up a ton of information. And yeah, there might be stuff to buy, but that's because they want to, not because they feel they have to, because without buying something, they can't do anything that was in the lecture. I also want to make it really entertaining. So I don't just want to do the whole performance explanation. I don't want to do that. I want to put some other stuff in there as well. And I'm trying to figure out what. Like, I'd like to do, I'd like to do a rant, but I don't know how well that'd go. I'd like to actually do a lecture where there's a whole bunch of content in there and it's almost like sitting down and watching this YouTube channel. And I might start off by teaching a couple of really simple tricks, and then it might be a case that I do a rant, then it might be a case that I do another couple of simple tricks. Different. Then maybe I talk about something that I would a Q&A maybe. Then maybe I talk about something that I talk about on the magic stuff. So it's kind of like Magic TV Live, if that kind of makes sense, where, yeah, you're going to learn some great magic, but you're also going to get everything else that you'd normally get on the YouTube channel. That's what I want to do. That's the goal. And if I can't figure it out, then I probably won't do a lecture. So any ideas that you've got, I'd love to know. I have been booked to do one lecture. I'm doing it for free just to help out, because I think that's important. And it's for Mark Bennett at the House, not the House of Illusion, that's Rodney Piper. It's Mark Bennett at Smoke and Mirrors in Bristol. So Mark Bennett, and I think he's doing it virtually and he's also doing it live. He's kind of got a hybrid event, so anyone can log on. But I'm going over to Smoke and Mirrors and I'm doing a full lecture. And he actually said, please, when you come along, can you do a rant as part of the lecture? And I said, absolutely. And that's kind of what made me think about what I would want to include in a lecture. So I'm definitely doing a lecture. That's on the 17th of July, and that's for the guys at Smoke and Mirrors, and they've had a really tough time. You know, Mark's an amazing guy. His venue is absolutely fantastic. What he does to the community and for the community is brilliant, and he's gone through some real hard times during COVID. And so I've said, hey, if you want me to come along and do a lecture, that's absolutely fine. I'll just head down, and it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm kind of putting something together for that. And I'm trying to work on this format. I'd like to make it very different to anything else that's out there. Like this YouTube channel, you know, I think this YouTube channel and the way that we put the videos up and the way that it's approached is different to any other YouTube channel out there. Well, I'd want the lecture to do the same. Yeah, I could just go out and just talk about a load of tricks and just perform a load of tricks, and that's fine, but I'd like it to be more than that. So if you guys have got any ideas, 1, would you go and see a lecture that I do? And 2, have you got any ideas about what you'd want me to include in a lecture? Because I'm thinking through this whole thing now, and I'd love to get your opinion. That'd be good. So there you go, guys. That is another Q&A in the bag, as Rylan would say. Thank you so much for joining me again this Sunday. I really appreciate it. I've got a very special video going up at 9 o'clock tonight. So if you haven't already, go check out Wednesday's interview. On Wednesday, I had an interview go up with the legend Wayne Dobson. And it was an amazing interview, and it was a real pleasure interviewing Wayne. Well, on the back of that, this Sunday, I've got a review show special on Dietrich's, which is Wayne Dobson's company. And I'm going to be reviewing 5 items from Dietrich's, including an amazing card trick, which is one of the best card tricks I've ever seen. I'm going to be reviewing these 5 products and talking about what I think about them. And a lot of them have flown under the radar of a lot of performers. So that's going up at 9 o'clock tonight. Check that out. Outside of that, I'm going to be back next week. I'm going to be back on Monday with a 5x5 at 9 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I'm going to be having a live, and at 2 o'clock, we're going to have a shorts. So there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up here on Magic TV. As normal, if you want to see more videos like this, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to ask a question for next week. That is very important. This whole format lives and dies by the questions that you ask. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below, and I'm going to be back again tomorrow with a whole bunch more videos. I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.